Have you heard the story of Wade Wilson? A ruthless who mocked the victims' families in court. I'll tell you how he targeted women, why he became infamous on TikTok as the Deadpool killer, gathering an army of fans, and what ultimately happened to him. The murdered women. It all began in a small town called Cape Coral, where there was little more than fields and wastelands. Among its residents were 35-year-old Christine Melton and 43-year-old NEA Diana Ruiz. Christine was born in Illinois and had been close friends with Stephanie Sailors since childhood. Together, they navigated their school years, dreaming of the future and traveling the country in search of work and adventure. After moving to Florida, they worked as waitresses in local restaurants. Christine spent her earnings not only on herself but also helping her elderly mother, who lived nearby. On the evening of October 6, 2019, Stephanie and Christine went to a bar in Fort Myers, just a 20-minute drive from Cape Coral. There, they met Wade Wilson, who, as it turned out later, introduced himself under a false name. According to Stephanie, that evening, he seemed friendly and charming. After the bar closed, the women went to Wilson's home, where they spent several hours. However, Wilson, being too intoxicated to drive, prompted the women to call an Uber to return home. The next morning, Stephanie received no response from Christine, which was unusual for her. Stephanie's worries were confirmed when police discovered Christine's body in her home. Medical examiners found numerous bruises and injuries on her body, indicating a violent death. Diana Ruiz, who also went missing that day, was found dead 3 days later in a field near a local bar. She showed signs of strangulation and had a broken neck. Investigators concluded that Wilson ambushed Diana on her way to work, pretending to need help before attacking her. He strangled her and, ensuring she was still alive, fatally ran her over. How did it all begin? How did this fateful evening start? Melissa Montes and Wade Wilson, a couple celebrating 6 months of their relationship, were out at the Buddha Bar in Cape Coral. Their evening began with fun and meeting new people, a usual activity for the pair who enjoyed spending time in such venues. During the party, Wade met another woman and persuaded Melissa to continue the celebration at the new acquaintance's house. However, Melissa refused, leading to a heated argument. Wade claimed he needed something from Melissa's car, a gray Dodge Hellcat, but then disappeared with the vehicle. He seemingly used it to meet the woman he had just befriended. The next morning, he angrily called Melissa, demanding to meet at her workplace. Sensing something was off, Melissa went to the specified location, only to see that Wade arrived in a black Nissan instead of her Dodge. Yes, you heard that right. When she began questioning him about her car, Wade, in a bold manner, suggested discussing everything inside the vehicle. Melissa refused, prompting Wade to use physical force, trying to drag her into the car, almost tearing her dress in the process. A crowd gathered around the pair, but no one called the police. Melissa eventually managed to escape and hid in a nearby cafe, which likely saved her life. Police arrived at the scene some time later. Melissa recounted the incident, including calls from an unknown number. It turned out that this number belonged to Christine Melton. An officer approached the car where Wade was sitting and found him intoxicated and shirtless. Wade answered the officer's questions evasively, who then asked him to stay at the scene until backup arrived. However, Wade did not wait and left the area. Who was Wade? A strange guy, right? But life hadn't been kind to him either. Wade Wilson was born in Fort Myers, Florida, on May 20, 1994. His life was challenging from the start. His teenage biological parents weren't ready to take responsibility for a child, especially considering his mother's struggles with mental health and drug addiction. As a result, Wade was adopted by the Wilson family, who already had 2 daughters. In his childhood, Wade appeared to be a well-adjusted boy with no trouble adapting to school or facing bullying. He excelled academically and was actively involved in sports, although numerous head injuries during sports activities might have negatively impacted his mental state. According to his family, Wade underwent a drastic change at 13. He began experiencing paranoid thoughts and withdrew, avoiding communication with both family and friends. His adoptive father once found drugs in Wade's possession and reported it to the police, leading to his temporary commitment under the Baker Act for psychiatric evaluation. Wade was also temporarily suspended from school for selling drugs. Several classmates shared their memories of him. One woman recalled smoking with Wade and others before school began. She described him as someone who didn't respect authority and often associated with shady characters. Another woman spoke of a brief relationship with Wade, during which he was disrespectful and unfaithful. She also suspected him of stealing money from her wallet during their time at school. A troubled teen in high school, Wade Wilson became known as a troubled teen who had no intentions of going to college and hung out with people who often got into trouble. He leaned toward illegal activities, such as trespassing and car theft, which didn't bring him financial gain but seemed to give him satisfaction. Despite his issues, Wade grew up in a home with loving adoptive parents described by classmates as kind and caring. They did everything possible to provide a stable and supportive environment, but Wade didn't seem grateful or appreciative of their efforts. As a teenager, Wade began experiencing serious mental health problems, including paranoia and hallucinations. He claimed to see invisible creatures in the garage, causing great concern for his adoptive parents. They even called the police to confirm that no one was there, hoping to calm Wade down. At 18, Wade started reconnecting with his biological father, Stephen, whom he manipulated for money. Wade also survived several car accidents that resulted in head injuries, requiring court scans, though no severe fractures or bleeding were detected. Starting in early 2010, Wade Wilson caught the attention of law enforcement, becoming involved in 20 different criminal episodes, including charges of assault and fraud. Testimony of the ex-girlfriend, Kelly Matthews, Wade's ex-girlfriend, revealed that their relationship started relatively peacefully but soon turned aggressive. Around 2019, Kelly stated that Wade attacked her, abducted her, and took her to the Florida Keys, where he assaulted her. After this incident, Kelly filed a police report, but her complaint was never properly investigated. Additionally, she claimed that at the beginning of their relationship, Wade introduced himself under a different name, and she only discovered his real identity later upon receiving a letter addressed to him. This letter also revealed that he had a daughter from another relationship. Kelly added that she contacted another one of Wade's ex-girlfriends, who confirmed his violent tendencies, saying he had also abused her periodically. All of these events painted Wade in a very dark light. But how did he gain fans? I'll explain that later. Arrest by police after attacking his girlfriend near her workplace, Wade Wilson fled the scene and headed toward Fort Myers, driving about 10 kilometers to a parking lot at Hancock Bridge in Cape Coral. Here, he contacted Joshua Lukic, an acquaintance from a previous job. Upon arriving, Wade asked for help in buying plane or bus tickets, expressing a desire to leave town urgently after committing what he described as terrible things. However, Joshua refused to aid in his escape and called the police. Wade Wilson was arrested on October 8, 2019, just a day after Christine Melton's body was discovered. At the time, he was in the area of Alva, where he ended up after breaking into the home of an elderly couple. Local residents had seen him wandering the streets covered in blood. According to the police report, Wilson appeared to be under the influence of alcohol or drugs at the time of his arrest. Body camera footage from the responding officer showed Wilson driving Christine Melton's stolen car, which he had used to attack his ex-girlfriend in an attempt to flee Florida. The vehicle had visible front bumper damage, suggesting a possible collision with a pedestrian. Denial of confessions. At first glance, the case seemed straightforward, but it quickly hit a snag. One of the key pieces of evidence was testimony from Wade's biological father, Stephen, who claimed his son had called him on October 7 and confessed to the crimes. Initially, Stephen thought his son was making up stories, but after a second call, he believed him. A wealth of evidence, including video recordings, witness testimonies, and accounts from Wade's ex-girlfriends about his violent behavior, provided ample grounds for prosecution. However, the case was delayed multiple times due to the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, which disrupted court hearings and forensic examinations. Although Wilson initially admitted to the murders during his first police interrogation and confessed to both his father and ex-girlfriend Mila, he later recanted his statements. While in jail, Wilson dramatically altered his appearance, tattooing his face with several symbols, including a controversial Nazi emblem. Despite efforts by the defense to build their case around Wilson's potential mental health issues, the overwhelming evidence and his erratic behavior before and during the trial painted him in an overwhelmingly negative light. Trial testimony. What happened during the trial? Investigators established that Wade Wilson attacked Christine Melton while she was asleep. The assault woke her up, and she began fighting back, as evidenced by broken nails, bruises, and brain injuries. Around the same time, Wilson encountered Diana Ruiz, asking her for directions to a school. Diana got into his car, although the exact reasons remain unclear. She may have been coerced, or her kindness led her to help a stranger, which turned out to be a fatal mistake. During the trial, it was revealed that Wilson had noticed fear on Diana's face. He admitted to killing 2 women, one who simply wanted to have a good time and another who was on her way to work. The court also read a letter from Wilson's sister, Wendy. She described him as a monster plagued by addictions and expressed sorrow that his illness had stolen him from the family. A psychiatrist who testified at the trial conducted several interviews with Wilson and his family to understand the roots of his criminal behavior. The expert noted that Wilson showed no signs of deviant behavior in childhood, but everything changed when he turned 13. The psychiatrist suggested that Wilson might suffer from a mental disorder, possibly schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, that had gone undiagnosed. The lack of treatment and refusal to see doctors or take medication likely led to worsening symptoms, including paranoia, hallucinations, and uncontrollable rage. Crimes in prison. But did you think arrest would stop this man? Wade Wilson continued his criminal activities even behind bars, further demonstrating his dangerous nature and behavioral issues. While incarcerated, Wilson and his cellmate, Joseph Katz, attempted to escape from the Lee County Jail by damaging a metal window frame and removing a bolted-down metal stool. As a result, additional charges were filed against him. Moreover, on April 20, 2023, Wilson and 5 other inmates were charged with drug trafficking. Police had been monitoring prison phone calls and learned about conversations between Wilson and Bonnie Wiggins discussing drugs. This led to a covert investigation during which police observed Wiggins and 3 other suspects outside the prison. Sentence returning to Wilson's main case, the jury, considering the brutality of his crimes and his apparent enjoyment of his victims' suffering, recommended the death penalty as his punishment. This decision was presented as a recommendation, and the final sentence was handed down by the judge in late August 2024. Yes, the death penalty. However, given the psychiatrist's findings about Wilson's mental state, there remains a possibility that the sentence could be commuted to life imprisonment with mandatory psychotherapy and medical evaluations. The effectiveness of the death penalty as a deterrent continues to spark debate. Activists argue that it does not significantly impact crime rates and highlight the risks of wrongful convictions due to human error. TikTok phenomenon, and remember I mentioned his fans? In the summer of 2024, TikTok was flooded with videos of Wilson's court appearances, where he was shown in sharp suits, looking impeccable. His appearance sparked admiration among teenage girls, who created countless clips romanticizing him and comparing him to fictional characters like the Joker, with his lawyer cast as Harley Quinn. Adding to the intrigue was the fact that Wade Wilson's name is identical to that of the popular Deadpool character, which was enjoying a resurgence in popularity. Social media saw a rise in accounts dedicated to supporting Wilson, urging people to sign petitions against his death penalty. This phenomenon, known as the beauty privilege, highlights how physical attractiveness can influence public perception, sometimes even softening attitudes toward heinous crimes. Fortunately, in this case, justice prevailed.